In part 2 of my chat with retired detective Graeme Simpfendorfer, who is also the founder and CEO of Peregrini Consultancy and Peregrini AI. We dive further into the world of AI and how it's going to change the world of crime. It's quite mind-blowing where we're headed. My sense is if police embrace AI in investigations, the life of a criminal is going to get a lot tougher. But maybe I'm looking at things simplistically, because no doubt the crooks are also going to embrace AI as well. That may counterbalance the advantages law enforcement have. We also had a close look at how AI may help solve cold cases and how it could be used in the court system. It's a really interesting chat that I learned a lot from. Graeme, welcome back to part 2 of I Catch Killers. I'm scared. AI, it's taking over the world.
Yeah.
I want to jump straight into cold cases because, homicide was my passion in my career. I know you worked homicide, and people are just fascinated with cold cases. And the thing with homicide, until they're solved, it doesn't matter if they're 50 years old. People want results when someone's life's been taken. How can we use AI in the cold case space?
Great question, and some significant pieces can play a really important part in this. So there's the aspect of reviewing all the old information, laying a lens across what we know open source around that information as well. So it's large data sets of information that, like you said, to get your head around a cold case, you literally sit with a box for a month or so trying to understand it all. If you can put all that data into AI, it'll pull out for you what the key issues are, where the gaps are, perhaps some avenues of inquiry even. So again, like we said before, you don't want to lose the skills of an investigator, but it can process that large set of information really quickly and accurately with what's been given in those statements, and may even be able to say, hey, look, we need to go back further, because we've seen with cold cases the way statements were taken 10 years ago, 20 years ago, very almost leading, if you will, because you're trying to cover your points of proof and not that whole story that you get. So one of those aspects is going back, if you can, to speak to some of those witnesses, and the AI can say, let's go back and explore this part a bit more, or the person that witnessed that vehicle drive by, let's go back and see that. There's that aspect of understanding the investigation and I guess the investigation plan, but then there's also a review of either CCTV or face images, and that's where the facial recognition technology could come in and play a part for cold cases.
Okay. And when you said, the AI might say, have you thought of this, or line of inquiry, not taking that personal as an investigator, because what you're dealing with AI, they're drawing on the experience of all the, in theory, at its best, all the world's greatest investigators are looking at this case.
That's
all
right.
the information that they've learnt from past things. Because am I describing it correctly?
No,
but that's
100%.
basically they're drawing on all the information.
That's right, taking everything into account and thinking outside the box if it needs to. And that's the skills of a great investigator, processing that. And you can teach it to think about the laws of evidence and making sure that whatever strategy or tactic that it's thinking of is compliant with the law and compliant with the rules of evidence. So it'll do all that for you. But you're right, it's taking the best of everything and applying it to your case. So for cold cases, it's worth a review. It's worth looking at a ability to either fix some footage, or make the CCTV less grainy, or looking at a face image that was previously no one knew who this was or couldn't be solved. And that's where this journey for me kicked off, actually, was looking at a friend of mine showed me a documentary series that I think was on Netflix about I think it was 1979 Luna Park fire.
Oh yeah,
that was covered.
I remember that. There were seven people.
That's right.
Died on the ghost train. Is that the one?
That's the one.
About?
Yeah, and I watched it. I got a degree in fire investigation, so the scientific brain of me was very intrigued by that aspect. But then, as the documentary went on, it was Caro Meldrum Hanna that did that documentary, an amazing documentary, by the way. And towards the end, there's this face image of who they believed lit the fire, and there was allegations of being linked to bikies or the like, but there was this face image. And I just could not understand how in this day and age we don't have technology that could turn that face image from just the sketch image that we're used to seeing into an actual person.
Yep.
And then use the data sets and AI to search for that person through either criminal networks or, there's some ethical considerations around searching against open source.
Yeah.
But how can we not have that? And that sent me on the journey of researching who surely someone could be doing this. And my investigations globally is no one is. So we started that journey with Peregrine AI around turning a cold case composite sketch image, so the old hand-drawn ones, using AI to turn that into a 3D version of a person, and then you've got a much better identity of who that person could be, searching against either open source or criminal databases for an identity. And you need to potentially age that person, obviously, if you're talking about a cold case. The AI, we've all seen it on your Instagram reels, is what are you going to look like when you're 70? The AI will age you, and it can age you. But again, it's only as good as what's put into it. So you're relying on the witness's version of what they remembered. And we all know we would see, this is a 70% likeness, or this is an 80% likeness. The AI can turn that 70% likeness into something and use it as a tool to search the sources. But it's still the investigator's job to actually, is that the person or not?
Okay, and so there's a responsibility of the type of information you put in. And you've said with creating that, or the image, and whether you put it into open source. When you're talking open source, you put in out there on social media everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so open source source intelligence is the web. Yeah, or Instagram, Facebook, so Google,
put it out there. Anyone, yeah.
And there's some ethical considerations because when you upload your photo to Facebook, you're not really giving permission for that to be used, or scraped is the term. You're not giving anyone authorization to scrape all that. So there is some ethical considerations that need to be looked at. But that's the stuff we need to work through. If we're looking for a murderer or a rapist, are the laws going to be sufficient to help support law enforcement to identify that person?
Well, it should be like we've had to, as technology evolves and the powers you need the authority, and it might be for listening devices from the Supreme Court.
That's right.
That type of thing to get permission. On the Ghost Train one, did that evolve into anything? What you were looking at?
Still a work in progress. So we're still using that as a test case to. It's a great test case actually to turn that image into a person, but also age that person and what they might look like 10 years ago. Because 79 there was no Facebook. You need to age that person to see if that person is actually out there, either on a license photo or a passport photo. So law enforcement has access to all that already. So that's where we're at, and we're just trying to train that. So to train the AI to do it, I've had some friends sketch myself and then run it across open source, and it's showing some really positive results. We've got
positive in terms of the way you're aging.
That's right. Not like a fine wine though. Positive in it's around 96 to 90, anything over 96, 97%. Is showing as accurate.
Okay,
and it's picking.
If we break it down in percentages, that's a good percentage to work with.
Yeah, and it's a good tool, isn't it? So to either rule that person in or out, you might get a hit on this likeness is like this person, but then your investigation says actually that can't be that person. That person left the country 2 weeks before the offence.
Another thing that comes in. So with AI, like we used to get, when I first started in the police, it'd be penries. Someone drawing a sketch. This is what Graeme looks like, and that. And there was some good, and there was subjectivity came into it when people were doing the sketches. But AI, when it's doing, they're dragging all that information in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where there's been failings, where there's been successes, that's the type of access to the material we're having.
And that's how you want it to learn. So you don't want it with a bias towards a certain culture or a certain a certain inference, I guess. You want it to be accurate to what it is you're looking for. So your sketch that's only 70% accurate of the person is only going to get 70% accuracy on what you're searching for using the AI. So you've still got to use your investigator brain to think about who it is, etc. But it'll do it so quickly, and it'll search your license or your prison photos that are taken time and time again. It'll do it in seconds.
This is hypothetical, and it's talking about actual investigations, but it's just got my mind ticking over. the Bowraville, I call it serial killing of 3 Aboriginal children, Colleen Walker, Evelyn Greenup and Clinton Speedy, back in 1991, over a 5-month period. They disappeared and their bodies were found near a location. That case has been worked on for over 30 years. I became involved in the investigation, I think 5 or 6 years after the children had disappeared, for a re-investigation, and we revisited, like you do on a cold case, revisited, and the big argument initially was, were these matters linked? And we went through tendency and coincidence evidence and strongly show that the likelihood they have been linked. I'm just thinking with what you're talking about, with all that, and from my memory, there's probably about lever arch folders. Sometimes I presented to the courts because it's been through courts time and time again. It might be 15, 20 lever arch folders of information. And there was an analyst that worked on the case, Bianca, and myself and another detective, Jerry Bowden and Jason Evers, and we were the walking, talking knowledge of that investigation, only because we had to do it old school and read the documents and everything. So we retained and we summarised the information, we analysed the information, and Bianca did some extraordinary work as the analyst. But with AI, if AI looked at that, there's a very real possibility they could pick up something, despite our best efforts, that we might have missed. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely fair. Yeah, it may pick up an avenue of inquiry or a link that you didn't quite put together, or it might question a link. Yeah, it could work in the opposite too. Yeah, can't it? So it's a search for the truth. We all know that around investigations. It could actually do both. Could find new avenues of inquiry, or say, actually, you went down the wrong path on that one. Let's go back to that intersection where you went down there. And provide you with some insight. But it'll process all of those lever arch folders so rapidly and so thoroughly that it could map it out. But
and there were legal issues, and legislation was changed for that case, and there was high court decisions, and all those things could be brought down.
Into it. Yep.
And like we had some of the for and against, but some of the best legal minds in the country working on it, and but AI might even take it to the next level.
It can,
if it looked at it.
That's right, and it can, and I think there's a place for it. Again, coming back to, it's got to be the appetite, I guess, of the agencies around the country to want to lean into that and explore it, because without their assistance, without their access to these files or these data sets, you can't train the model. Yeah. But again, the first point's got to be safe, secure, and for the right purpose, and that's why we're looking at partnering with the right investors for this country, not people just want to make profit. This is about solving crime, and just even if it solves one cold case murder, how good is that for the family?
Well, you know the pain. You've been there. You've seen the pain that if anyone's case hasn't been solved or someone's missing and there's no answers. I also think, and I talk the William Tyrrell case, and that's a case that's very close to me, and I'm heavily involved in it. And I think of all the information, we were just overwhelmed with information because it was a high profile, and when I was running it for the 4 years, that there was so much information that could have gone through, and I could see something like AI. I'd like AI to look through it, and has anything been missed? And it's been running now for 6 years, and I think I'm as confused as the rest of the public what's happening on the investigation, but it'd be interesting for AI.
And it could, and another positive there in that case, in that scenario, and without knowing it to anywhere near the level that you have lived, it could take some of the conscious or unconscious bias out of the situation and deal with the facts and case law and evidence, processes, procedures, and just apply that.
And that's interesting that you say, like the biases, because that's been part of the conflict in that investigation. People say didn't get on board with what I was looking at, and vice versa. That would be good. I would love an objective opinion on it. I'm calling for a public inquiry on the Tyrrell investigation, or a judicial inquiry, some form of independent review of what's been done on that case. Maybe we call for an AI inquiry. I think
maybe it assists. Again, another tool to assist in that investigation. Again, removing any of those biases and going right back to the facts and the information at the time that was given, and it can unpack it all. It's just incredible.
Is AI capable of removing the biases? How here's a brief of evidence. give an objective opinion, I'm thinking, what would I be typing in the chat GPT if I had access to all the evidence that was gathered from the William Tyrrell investigation? Could you please review this investigation and give a unbiased opinion or an objective opinion on,
in accordance with the rules of evidence, facts of law, and you could even look at it from that criminal point of view, but you then put that lens of, as an investigator, where are the avenues of inquiry that we may have missed, or where are some choke points here that we can go back and revisit, etc. So, and it's about training it, but you've got to have access to some of these older, probably less intense cold cases to train your model to think as an investigator.
I would like to do it and I'm only referring to those two investigations because I'm very familiar with them. But I'd like to put all the information from both those investigations, put it into AI, and identify the person most likely to have committed these offences. That'd be interesting. What would
an
come
exercise? Out. And 100% it would be, and it can do it. It just got to be able to, as I said at the start, it does cost a lot of money to build these things, but the money is there in how much does it cost to solve a murder.
There's always it's always a contentious environment, the cold case units in any state, and I see it in all states, because you've got family members that are pushing for, we want everything done to have this case solved, and you've got police saying, well, we've looked at this, and there's pushback. There's always you're not going to satisfy everyone. Like if one case is unsolved, there's going to be a family that's unhappy. That's the nature of it. But it just gets me thinking. Quite often the cold case units are restructured, renamed, and we're going to do this and going to do that. But wouldn't it be interesting if they said, okay, we're going to get put all these cold cases through AI and see if anything's been missed? Because invariably they bring a fresh team of investigators, and the old saying, a fresh set of eyes. Sometimes it works, but we're all detectives. We're all probably trained in the same line of thinking. It would be good having that independence of AI looking through the briefs.
Couldn't agree more, Gary. I think that's having the appetite and the courage to go down that path. Because it obviously potentially will create more work for the police. But if you start to trade off the benefits of using AI in the administrative aspect we discussed earlier, you're freeing up some more time to potentially revisit here. But it's a case by case. Traditionally, the cold cases are brought up because there's a new piece of information. Well, this is a new tool that may be able to assist, and I'm all for it. And there are, you mentioned ChatGPT, but I'll give them a plug. The main code guys, they've built Matilda, the Australian version that's going to compete with ChatGPT, because it's going to be built on our bias, Australian culture, Australian knowledge, and using the data sets to build that are from here. And we have access to. And everyone has ability to input to that, not using a UK or an American or an Asian model to it. So
it's based on our environment and more relatable to it. So what's that called?
Matilda.
Matilda.
Yeah. The guys at Main Code, Dave and his team there, have built Matilda. They launched it recently. So it's exciting for Australia. And we could be global leaders in this space. Of AI. We don't need to rely on what's being done elsewhere.
Well, it's something that I think we need to embrace. And as I said, I'm not the first to adopt technology, but I'm starting to look and think you're going to get left behind if we don't look at this. But breaking down what we just talked about, my mind's spinning in terms of what could be done with cold cases. And quite often it's just that small piece, that missing piece of information that, with all the good intent of all the investigators working on it tirelessly, that is missed. Yeah,
exactly. What's that old game? It was Minesweeper. Yeah. We just click on that one little square that opens up everything. That's all you need.
All up.
So I think that's part of it. As long as we're adhering to and working with the partners in the real moral, ethical sense, adhering to the principles that they want, it can be built. But we're just got to get the right investors with the right purpose and integrity that we think we share to come with us on that journey to build it for the investigators. And we'll solve a heap.
And we keep coming back to that, the integrity and the ethics of it. That's crucial to it, isn't it? Because it can, it could go off track very quickly if it's not used properly.
Yeah, and as you said, you get one wrong because it, for whatever reason it may be, well, the whole thing comes crashing down. So,
and I dare say that's going to be, whenever technology came in, there was always a reluctance of police, but this might happen. AI in the courts.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm looking at. We had a magistrate on a few weeks ago on I Catch Killers, and we're talking about AI in the court system, and he made the comment that, say, sentencing of drink driving charges, PCA, prescribed concentration of alcohol, for sentencing, you could access what were the sentences on everyone that's been sentenced for that offence, and then make your determination on what sentence you should give, whether it's a suspension of licence and that type of thing. I think it's going to have to change the face of courts.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to have to. If they're not thinking about it, they should be, but I'm sure they are. Yep. And very smart minds in there. And what a way to be able to draw all that information from such a massive amount of history or data. Yeah. For the judges to have at their fingertips, or barristers to have to suggest to judges around sentencing parameters. Makes everything more efficient, more effective, and actually, comparable to, and that's what the whole point is. If only we could have that with the NRL judiciary or the AFL judiciary.
Well, I suppose the argument is that you've got to hang on to the human side of it, the human part of it.
Yeah.
But in my limited experience playing with AI, it comes back with some very emotional awareness that quite surprises me.
Yeah.
Like if it's things I'm thinking, I didn't expect a computer to spit that back at me.
Yep.
So, you feed all that into court. I don't know what the role of a solicitor. I know if I was charged, and I hope not to be charged again, I'll just put that on record, but if I was charged again, like I worked on my defence and worked with my great legal team for recording a conversation on the telephone. That almost seems like I did embrace technology, a leader on it. I would put it in AI and go, where is the strength of the case against me? Once the brief of evidence been served, what is the strength of the case against me? And this is my case, and then present a cogent argument.
For sure, yep.
So is there a role for solicitors anymore?
Oh, well, do we need less solicitors? We won't go there.
If we put it to a vote, we'll ask AI.
Look, and like we were saying before, like my lens through policing was a certain bias, and that's so changed now that I've come out on the other side and really respect and admire the work that are done by defence teams, because they've got to go through so much information on these serious cases, and is there an avenue there to explore or not? Is this the right person or not? That's the judicial system. But there's definitely a place for AI in that. I mean, I imagine the hours that are spent on that. But, the research solicitors, the
paralegals.
Paralegals.
Find this case law and all that.
Yeah, sorry, guys. It might be might be changing for you. But, it'll shift to another focus. We saw this with computers. And everyone thought, it's going to be the end of it all. Everyone's going to be out of jobs. Yeah. But we've seen now advanced manufacturing, for argument's sake. It's just shifted. And I dare us to use that word that I hate from COVID, pivot. But, oh my God,
You're clearly from down Victoria.
That's right. We heard it every single day.
Daniel Andrews say that every day.
Yeah. I won't say anything there. But we've seen the advancements, and new technology does bring new challenges and brings new things, but it takes that to the next step and next generation. And who knows what we're talking about in 20 years. Like we look now at, you look at some images and videos now and you go, that's AI. Yeah. I think in 3, 4, 5 years, you're not going to be able to tell.
We won't. The young child down in South Australia that disappeared, Gus, that they were getting a lot of AI, and a lot of media, different organisations reached out to me to comment on it just based on my experiences with the William Tyrrell matter. And what I acknowledged with the William Tyrrell matter, it was very difficult because there were a lot of sightings of William Tyrrell, and you had to sift through it, you had to follow it up, and we ended up working out a triage system on what weight we'd carry a sighting of William. But then another layer came in with the Gus thing, because there was AI generated images of you could work it out relatively easily that it was AI generated. But as you said, it's going to get better, and that's going to be very hard for investigators to sift through what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Not only just the images, but then voice, the use of people's voice. And we did do a bit of this on the show Hunted, where we cloned the person's voice and were able to write the script and rang their mother as if we were the fugitives.
Sneaky bastards.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but there's a criminal element that comes in on this too, doesn't it? So we see a lot of frauds that happen. Organised crime internationally will use this technology to try and commit fraud.
Yeah.
Which is why I have with my kids, the best way to try and get around is you have your code word.
Right.
So if my kids are overseas, hey Dad, I'm stuck, I need some money, which is your classic fraud case.
Yeah.
No worries, son. What's the code word for the day?
Yeah.
The AI won't know that, so it might sound like my son might be purporting to be him,
and
because
that's your protection.
Yeah,
that's a very simple, practical,
it's an easy way. Yeah. But then they've got to remember the code word. But no, that's our simple one, and I know if I'm either talking to them on the phone or they've sent me a voice message, or then fact check what's the code.
So with AI and voice, copying the voice, there's all these hours, and you're the same in the stuff that you've done in the media, and you've got me talking here on the podcast. They in effect could copy that voice.
Easy.
And at this point, it could be leaving a message, but I dare say it would get to the point where they could have a conversation in my voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, scary stuff, isn't it?
Especially if they phone my mother. No, Mum, don't sign that.
That's right, and that's the vulnerability. We'll see organised crime will keep shifting to where the gap is. Yeah, we've seen that in the tobacco industry.
Yes,
we saw it through the armed robbery days. When was the last time you saw a bank robbery?
Well, it's
because we target hardened, didn't we? Yeah. Now the real opportunity is online fraud and scams and targeting our elderly that aren't up with the tech. And there's a lot of work being done by the banks to educate, fact check. If that email doesn't look quite right, then don't do it. So there's a lot of space. So that's why it's so critical to have this developed. It's going to be developed. The crooks are going to use it. Yeah. So law enforcement needs to be right up there with them, not falling behind.
Well, we have to, because one thing about the crooks, they're creative in the way they can exploit a situation and move in, as you said, with the tobacco wars or whatever. If they see an area they can exploit. But it makes me concerned in that even before you'd go to court, if you had the photo of someone there or something, and there's a hard evidence, we don't know. Well, it sound like Donald Trump. Fake news, fake news. Image.
Yeah, that's right.
It's where's it going to?
Where does it end?
Yeah,
that's a scary thing. There are there are ways of trying to find if that is AI generated or not, and we're getting into a complete area which is outside my wheelhouse of how that's done. Yep. But that's part of the reason of building it with the ethics that's it needs to be.
Getting back to investigations, let's just put our heads to how else it could help. The fact sheet, and all these things seem relatively little, but in a high turnover, the high volume crimes, the type of things that the GDs police are out doing on a daily basis, and it might be arresting someone for a break and enter, and that there'll be should in theory free police up if we embrace what AI can do for us.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. Yeah, it should free up countless hours. How do you? We just give one example of the one homicide detective. Then if you times that by the volume crime as well, which potentially the crime mapping, the predictive data of where the hotspots are. We've seen a lot of great work done in that space in policing over the years. But there's another argument for another aspect of AI to look at the crime mapping. Where's all your cars getting broken into? What do we used to say that you'd see a crime spike of those volume crimes? You go, well, there's a dealer around here somewhere. Yeah. Because they're not going to hold on to the stolen gear for long. They want to offload that really quick, get their drugs, and away they go.
It could be as simple as someone targeting a shopping centre car park, cars being broken into, and we'd put a car in there, set it up, we've clearly left unlocked and wait till the person come to arrest them. But identifying patterns in crime would be good. Linking crimes is another thing, because quite often and we've got a lot better, I think, in law enforcement, because there's more of an exchange of information between jurisdictions, whether it's state police and that. But serial offenders, the type of thing that quite often went unnoticed because there was no link to the crime that this person had committed in another location. Yeah,
exactly. And I think you just speak to the core of what I'm hopefully trying to push is that all law enforcements need to get on board this. Yes. And once, the border, they don't care about the borders. Yep. We've seen that, and we've sadly learnt the hard lessons of those serial offenders that will jump jurisdictions because we weren't communicating. We're so much better now. but we can still improve. And if we're going to do this, I think everyone needs to get on board, because I guess the armed robbery or the sex offence that's committed over in WA may be exactly the same MO or the way of offending as then all of a sudden start to appear in Queensland. And there's a real space there as well to understand that and learn from that and mark it as a flag and go, well, that needs to be looked at. Is that possible that could be the same offender?
Yeah. Okay. Interviews, and I keep coming back to the interview room. You're playing with my head, thinking I could sit here with interview you for a couple of hours, and then my phone tells me you forgot to ask this or forgot to ask that. You could. A lot of the preparation for the interview room was preparing for the interview, and that quite often meant you had to read through the whole brief and get all the details so you had it in your head. I would imagine AI could help with that.
Yeah, the same question as what we asked before, rather than the question to the AI is put this together for the District Court or Supreme Court, is with all the available evidence to me at this stage, draft me an interview plan based on these offences and in line with the points of proof to prove the charge. Way you go.
Now that would I could see the benefits of it, but I also think, and you said you need that human oversight, you need an experienced police officer there listening to how you answered the questions, because I've seen mistakes people have made, and I've probably made it myself, that you work so hard to, okay, I've got to ask these questions. You've got 20 questions written out. Oh, good, I've asked that one, but you're not listening the answers. So, it's that balance between the human oversight and what AI can bring. Yeah,
I've been caught by that, I've got to say, embarrassingly, because you're so focused on your interview plan and where you're going, but that's why I would have your corroborator next to you to hopefully pick up on that. And when I first started homicide, on my introduction to the homicide world, I think it was day 2 I was there, we'd actually had a fellow in for an interview. And your team's watching through the other window listening, and they're all contributing, because everyone has different aspects of the brief, don't they? So, that was how it was done. And here's the next step to that. So if you still have people listening, you still have your boss listening or checking, but you've got your AI assistant there, making sure that you've covered everything off, and hopefully validate where you're at.
Well, in what we're talking about, you would think that because I'm not sure if we spoke on camera or off camera, we're certainly talking about it, the struggles that most police forces in Australia are having getting recruiting people at the moment. So the police that we've got to use them smart, or use them to the most efficiently. And if law enforcement embrace this, one would think that it would free up police from a lot of work behind the desk.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and I feel that it's about trying to identify what's going to be your biggest bang for buck.
Yeah.
And right now, I think that's the administration piece.
Yeah.
My heart goes to helping solve crime, obviously, that's what I want. But the biggest piece I would think here, I guess, for the senior police is getting rid of the administrative tasks that are day to day, your interview plans, your brief preparation, your fact checking, your rosters, your everything, all those administrative tasks that could be taken away, and all of a sudden, your analysts' hours are cut down, your investigators' hours are cut down. We're trying to work through some data now on actually putting a monetary value on how much that is to be able to sell. This is why we need to invest in this, and this is why we need you to come on this journey with us.
That would be interesting, and I think with an analyst, and I've worked with some great analysts over the years, and I think how they would readily adapt to using AI, like as in not making them obsolete by using it. It frightens me the amount of information they'd be able to spit out. So it doesn't have to be the dumb lead investigator.
That's right.
You go to the analyst, and the analyst is embracing it.
Yeah, another tool for them to use, and they're forward facing to the investigations that matter and using their skills that matter, not just monthly reporting. It's an important part of the piece for the big strategic vision. But again, that does need to be done by a human. It can be fact checked and looked at, but if you train it appropriately, and it's all there for everyone to see live. We've seen all the advancements in body worn cameras and all that. It's all there. It just needs to come together with the right partnerships.
Well, people might think this is an exaggeration, but I think you might be able to corroborate me here. I retired as a detective chief inspector. I was a inspector for the last 15 years, or a detective inspector in the police. I reckon 30 to 40% of my time spent when I'm leading investigations, leading all different murder investigations, 30 to 40% of my time would have been administration.
Yep.
And menial administration.
Yeah.
I cringe saying it, but it was the reality that once a month I'd be spending 2 or 3 hours adding up car diaries, making sure the car diary's calculated.
Yep.
And if I missed doing the car diary, that was probably worse than not solving a crime.
That's right. Yeah,
I didn't submit the car diaries on time. I had to check all the people under me. So things like that, that should just be by the wayside.
Yeah, again, no-brainer.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Free everyone up. And, there was, I joke about it, but there is that stress of the admin that comes with it. I know as the team leader as well, the monthly times come around and, you need to make more time for your admin, need to sit down and do this. Not, well, we're just going from job to job to job. And if we need that, you need to make these red lights green.
I don't think I'm unique. I think you speak to any operational police officer and the frustration. I used to, in fact, joke, sometimes say about 1 o'clock, okay, admin done, let's start investigating this murder. But it was quite often we're all office bound because we're catching up on record keeping for administrators.
Yeah, it's definitely got its place. So look, it's a no-brainer for me, but we're really close to, I think, getting on that right path. We've just got to have some courage to do it, and there's been a lot of changes in senior management and chief commissioners around the country. So there's time to come in here and lean in and have the conversation.
And look, I don't blame anyone that might have fallen behind or not realised, because it is changing so rapidly. We wouldn't be having this conversation 2 years ago.
No.
It would be completely different. We'd be talking like it's a sci-fi movie. But now it's reality.
That's right.
So we talk about saving time, but the thing that excites me most about is how it can enhance investigations.
Yeah, definitely.
It just seems like a no-brainer. The human factor, the sharp-minded analysts that you'd have on an investigation, and the detectives poring over briefs, that can potentially be done so much quicker.
100%. And imagine what we could do, preventing crime. And the unseen cost of prevention. That was always that movement towards the end of my career was, let's try and stop the crime before it even happens, rather than investigate it.
That's an interesting point too, and I haven't covered, and it's something that I wanted to cover, is that we've been focusing on solving crimes, but how can AI be used to prevent crimes? Give us some examples there.
Yeah, well, I think the clearest example is then predicting where the hotspots are, and we see a lot of work with that at the moment, but that's generally data predicting where these hotspots are. The AI aspect might come into that potentially, and where I see it more so is you'd see your 2, 3, 4, 5 street robberies, or that's one example where if we can identify this offender after the first one or the second one, we know they'll generally keep going because their motivation is either greed or drug-induced coma or whatever. If we can identify that person on day 1 or 2, how many offences have we stopped by being committed by getting that person here, not down the road? That's one aspect to it. There are some other discussions I'm having with other developers around the human behaviour models. So we've all seen the kids or anyone just before you watch the footage and go, okay, I can see they're starting to get 1,000-yard stare, they're doing this, it's about to be on. So you can see the human behaviours through footage, that something's about to happen. Right. When we've investigated either your machete attacks or the like that we see at shopping centres these days, there's a lead up to that. It just doesn't all of a sudden explode. There's a general lead up. So we can train AI to look at those human behaviours and what are the signals here. What's happening here. So we're getting into a whole other area now of non-policing, but I know private security is very interested in those aspects.
And that's interesting, and we'll use it just by way of an example, the attacks in the shopping centres, because it's been in the media a bit. But yes, there would be a gathering. I'm just picturing like an experienced investigator might be able to pick that up, but AI might be able to do it even better.
And when you're trying to monitor, I don't want to name particular shopping centres, but if you're trying to monitor hundreds and hundreds of cameras or big public events, the AI can do that. And it can alert the person that's there in charge of looking at those cameras. We're seeing something here on camera 46 and 47 of a gathering of some people.
It could be, let's break it down. It could be put, if there's 100 cameras around the shopping centre, and AI had put in place that if you see people dressed in this style of clothes, more than 4 gather at a location, alert us or draw
correct.
ping.
We want to know
us.
about it. Ping us. Let us know. And then that operator can then look at that and go, oh, that's nothing, or, whoa, we've got a problem here. And you're onto it 20, 30 seconds, a minute beforehand. Hopefully you can get there and disperse them before anything even happens. So you prevented the crime.
Well, that's always...
So there's an aspect of human behaviour, so your biomechanics that you need to train with data sets. So you need access to all these different ones that have occurred in the past, and the data's there. We've just got to partner with the right people to build that data and train the AI to, okay, that's what we're looking for. Or weapons identification. I know there's a great project that's been done through one of the people I mentioned before around identifying firearms, similar to what I said about vehicles.
Yeah.
So you know what gun you're looking for, or exactly which one it is.
And what you're talking here, just so I understand, and hopefully other people understand, like identify a gun. If I get out a Glock, I can tell it's a Glock, but it might have a scratch on the barrel or a scratch on the pistol grip. It might be something like that. That AI would pick up on that and go, that's the type of this weapon is the same weapon that was used in this shooting. Yeah.
If it's all talking holistically to each other, and you've got good footage. Yeah. So yes, you've got good footage, but even post offence, if you've got your suspects arrested with his with his 22 or a Glock or whatever the case may be, that's that particular weapon. All of a sudden you're plugging into all these unsolved ballistic reports of it actually was a Glock that was the weapon that killed this person in this murder, because we've got the ejected casing, etc. And all of a sudden you're linking all these cases. Again, cross-border stuff. That is volumes and volumes of forensic material that it can do in seconds if you're focusing on the right problem. What is the problem we're trying to solve here? So weapons identification is one. Similar to vehicles, they're definitive. There is an exhaustive list. There's only so many makes and models of firearms on the planet. So you can teach it to come up with those options of, this is what we definitely think it is, or this is potentially what the type of weapon is. And again, then you look at your execution of search warrants. We know we're looking for a particular make and model firearm, as opposed to the guesswork. So there's a lot there to I'm sort of overwhelming the conversation a bit with all the different aspects, but I think it really comes back to that initial piece of what is the issue that we're trying to use AI to solve. Is it administration? Is it prevention of crime? Is it cold cases?
And there's all these different things that it could enhance or assist.
Working with it.
And you said about overwhelmed with information. It made me think while you were talking about how we were overwhelmed with the availability of information, that when I first started as a homicide detective, there was a couple of people had mobile phones. You could find out or listen to their mobile phones, or they had landlines, and you could track them that way. And that was, that was the line of inquiry. A bank might have a CCTV camera out the front, but only a bank or a licensed premises. And I did actually see towards the latter part of my career, we were getting overwhelmed with information. Like there was so someone's murdered, you get called out, and the instructions I was given in the early days as a young homicide detective, go out and collect all the CCTV footage from businesses, and you'd come back, that service station had one, and you'd be all proud of yourself, and there was one at the bank. Now you say that private homes, cars have got it's. And then, as my career progressed, I'm sitting at the top and I'm looking at all the information we've got, and I'm going, I'd be pulling my hair out if I had hair, just overwhelmed with the information. And AI swings the pendulum back in favour of being able to handle all that information, doesn't it? Because we did get to the point where we were overwhelmed.
Well, information intelligence is key, isn't it? Yeah. So the sooner you can get that in investigators' hands and understand it, the better you're positioned for your strategy. So all that information that you're getting from CCTV, from that murder, getting it all together, if you miss that bit of footage that shows it turned left onto the freeway, then that's a complete game changer, isn't it? So it won't miss that. And whether you're plugging in 100 cameras worth of footage into this AI, it'll track that. You tell it, I want you to track that car, that's the one we want. Now, out of all this information we've got, timeline and tell me where it's been and what it's done, and bang.
And what people didn't, when I say people, the public, if you're not involved directly in it, when we've got listening devices in houses, you put a listening device in here and you've got someone monitoring it. They can even monitor it live, and if something happens, or invariably you've got to come back and review it, because it's not being monitored live. So you've got 24 hours of listening.
Yes.
And like people going, have you gone through that?
Yeah.
And, you go, well, it's basically in real time, and then when you hear the conversation, then you've got to document the conversation. It was so time consuming.
And then we'll blow our minds with, then you add a layer of, if you need a translator.
Yeah.
So, I get 100% your point, and that's those complex pieces of information and large amount of data that it can deal with, and that definition of AI, you said right off the top, that's what it's doing. It's looking at all of those conversations, and if you're after, key words, or if you're after a key, you want them talking about the victim of a planned murder, you got a contract kill job or whatever, you want to know whenever that pops up.
And so we would get to the point where I've used limited times when I have people look at the terminology used by an offender from a psychological, or suspect from a psychological point of view. You could even feed that into it, couldn't you?
Yep.
It appears that when he's talking about that issue, his demeanour or his language is changing, little things like that. And it's only incremental victories, but they're the little things that make the difference.
100%, and gives the advantage back to the police.
Yeah.
There's one other piece that I will talk to, it can be quite confronting, so I don't want to trigger anyone on here, but a really, I think, crucial piece of where AI can help as well is in the child exploitation material space.
Okay.
You would, basic example, police do a search warrant on a laptop, and you've got hundreds or thousands of really horrific images of child exploitation material. Some of that you may be concerned is contact offending. So you're trying to identify this kid that's clearly in the footage or in the images with your accused. You need to find out who this kid is to stop the contact offending. So then you're madly trying to figure out how is this possible? Where is it? You're looking at the metadata of the images. You're looking at all this sort of stuff. The AI should be able to work out that, and may even be able to use facial recognition technology of the child to try and identify who is this child. So that's the piece I feel that's where the trigger for scraping social media is important, because that kid's photo might be in the background at someone's birthday or at any event, and all of a sudden you've got a match on this kid that's being offended against, and you can immediately stop that offending through the use of the AI to identify that kid. There is some work being done in that space by the AFP and Monash Uni, and that's fantastic. But it needs more support, it needs more funding, and it needs more attention to help protect these kids, because it's crucial. Because there's nothing worse as an investigator, like, can't find this kid, and we know they're being offended against, and you can't release it to the media. You've got to protect the identity of these kids.
That seems like a no-brainer. If AI can help in that space, and I understand what you're saying, you're a kid that's been sexually abused, and you've got to identify that child.
That's
AI could help.
That's why we want to partner with the right investors that have the same morals and purpose that we have at Peregrine to get this done, because we can protect kids.
We touched just briefly fiscally. This seems like a no-brainer for law enforcement. Freeing up more success, reducing crime. There seems to be benefits all over.
Yeah, I think so, but it's also challenging times, isn't it? And I can only talk in the Victorian context, because that's what I saw when they were seeking a new chief commissioner. To have to save, ordered by the government to save $500 million per year in your budget. So good luck, chief, but better you than me. But that's the first step off point. So if you're then coming along, or a company like Peregrine's coming along, going, we want you to partner with us because we want to invest in this. You really can't expect the government to be stepping, or the police to be stepping up in their budget to assist. Hence why we need corporate support. But it is a no-brainer. But eventually they'll get there to see the benefits of, we've saved so many hours in investigators' time and administrative tasks. But now it'd be very challenging then for them to commit.
I hope they see it that way, because as we said, sometimes police, when technology changes, we drag our sure there's not many detectives that haven't had to go to a private company
Yeah.
to get something that the police, you would assume police had capabilities of, but didn't.
Well, like I said, I was at a conference 18 months, 2 years ago,
Mm.
and it was around the child exploitation thing,
Yeah.
and very senior police, and I won't name the organisation, were there going, when is private sector going to step up and help us?
Yeah, yeah.
I went, oh, let's have a conversation over a coffee. So,
Well,
it's close, but we just need to keep it going, keep the conversation going, and keep developing it. Look, coming back to it, I just thought of when we were speaking before around the use of AI and cameras and that now. Like, it's actually present now. I've got cameras around my place, and they're they're giving a plug to the Eufy system, but they've got AI on there, so you can now load someone's face onto your home CCTV system, and it'll alert me when that person is there, whether I want them there or not. So the AI is already plugged into some of these things that are there. So, as you said, it's coming, it's here.
Well, that could go into an area, a very real area, that like domestic violence and that type of thing.
Yep, huge.
But you could, forewarned if someone's turning up.
Yep, 100% it is.
So,
and that's that natural evolution of what used to just be, an old school CCTV camera, the big chunky ones on there, that are now these small little ones that are either powered by solar or battery, and they've got AI into them that can alert you to, whether you do want them or don't want them there, can give you an alert to your phone, and you can be anywhere in the world. I think I was lucky enough to be overseas not too long ago, and I'm getting alerts from my camera back home.
Right.
Oh, thank you. That's the person turning up to feed my turtle. Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Fair call.
Yeah.
He's allowed to.
Yeah,
Turtle's got to eat.
Turtle's got to eat, yeah.
Turtle's got to eat. Well, look, I really enjoyed the chat, and thanks for coming on. You're the right person, because I needed someone to bring me crashing into this brave new world. But the way it's evolving, I might have to have you back in 6 months' time, and it mightn't even be you. It might be a hologram or something.
That's right.
I don't know.
I might remote in virtually, yeah.
But
that's great. But
I think you've given you've given me an understanding. I hope the listeners an understanding of what's out there.
I hope so, yeah. And I hope that point of just looking a bit further about what AI can do. Yeah. It's not just a one shop or one scenario fits all. It's what's the problem, what is it, and to have some courage to lean into it. But good luck trying to sleep tonight, Gary. I've blown your mind, I think, as to where it's going.
I'm down the rabbit hole now. I'm gone. We finish off with, because I do think that's important, because we know how power can corrupt in police, and that the ethics and the integrity it needs with this type of thing.
Absolutely.
Being part of our lives.
Absolutely critical, which is why, again, I've said it countless times, it needs to be built here for here.
Just hold on for a second. I'm just going to put in Chat GPT how I say goodbye to Graeme.
Love it.
Thank you, Graeme, for coming on Eye Catch Killers. It's been a very entertaining discussion.
Thanks, Gary.
It has been.
Cheers.